Hello, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic, where today I'm going to look at a classic variant Sudoku. So this is an irregular puzzle, sometimes called Jigsaw Sudoku. Usual rules apply, except obviously if you look at this grid, there are no 3x3 blocks, but there are lots of funny shapes. Now, if you're trying to solve one of these puzzles, there are some very, very important techniques that you need to be aware of, and I'm going to cover those hopefully in solving this puzzle, which has been sent to us by Jorgen. So thank you, Jorgen, for sending us this. I think Jorgen comes from Sweden. So yet another country ticked off in our round the world quest. Now, I don't know yet how hard this puzzle is, but I do know that one of the puzzles Jorgen sent us was monstrously difficult. It was an 8x8 irregular puzzle that also had constraints in the diagonals, and I had a look at that for about 20 minutes and made very little progress, so I'm hoping this is more suitable to a video. But without further ado, do try the puzzle first. I think it's really especially important on these variants that you have a crack at them, because I think that can illustrate where some of the problems lie. Now, what I'm going to do is something a bit unusual, I think. I'm going to talk about the most important technique with a regular Sudoku, and it is the ability to divide the grid and to use what I like to think of as sort of parity in order to help you solve it. So let's have a quick look. The most obvious one is probably this square. This square is related to this square. They have to be the same. Now, have a think about that and see if you can see why. In fact, I'm going to highlight. Will it let me highlight? Yes, this is marvellous, this software from Sam. So you can see I've highlighted two squares there. These squares have to have the same value. And the reason, if we look at the bottom two rows of the grid, if we think about, let's imagine this number here was an 8, just for the sake of an example. If this was an 8, that would mean we know that the last two rows of the grid have to contain two 8s. And we know that all of these four squares couldn't contain an 8 anymore because we put the 8 up here. We know there can only be one 8 in this block, so we need to replenish the 8 that's sort of branching across this imaginary line where the cursor's moving here. Now let's have a look at this grid and see how, or whether we can spot any other opportunities to use this. I'm going to highlight these before we even enter in a number. So I suppose another good example, and in fact this would give us a number, let's imagine there's a line coming down here dividing column 1 from column 2. What could we see about the Sudoku if there was such an imaginary line? You can see these two squares stick out. They cross the imaginary line, and these two squares also cross the imaginary line. So we know that these two squares, the values of these two squares have to be replicated in the value of these two squares, because we know that obviously we need to include the numbers from 1 to 9 in this column. Anything in this shape that's included up here, we know it needs to be replenished by being in these two squares. So let's do some more highlighting. So yes, this is great. Look at this. I can actually highlight everything. So this, as we go through the solve, I'm hoping that this highlighting will help us to remember these sort of parity constraints. Now I can see another one. Let's divide row 1 from row 2. So you can imagine if we draw a line between row 1 and row 2, look at what happens in this shape here. These two squares stick out. They cut the imaginary line, and these two squares stick in. So again, we're going to have a relationship between these values, like that. And finally, I've noticed a more complicated one. Have a look at the columns here. See if you can see a way of dividing the columns in such a way that it might be a useful use of this parity technique. And what I'm going to suggest is that if we draw an imaginary line down here between column 6 and column 7, you can see that to the left, if you like, cutting left across the line, there's this square, this square, this square, and this square, these 4 squares. So we know that those 4 squares are going to have the same value as this square, this square, this square, and this square. Now that's going to make this a bit difficult actually, because I don't think I can highlight in 2 colours. I'm not sure whether I can or not. Hang on a moment, let me just see if the software is going to allow me to do that. Let's try green. No. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight this like this so that we can all remember it. Green, 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 green. I'm going to remove the highlighting at the top there just because I'll remember these 2 from this one. Okay, so here we go. So we haven't done anything yet, but we have divided our grid up. And now we're going to try and solve the puzzle. And with irregular Sudoku, I recommend trying to use as much Snyder notation as possible. It's very easy in these puzzles to get bogged down in notation. It's tempting often to include too much notation. So do try and resist that if you can. So I'm going to put 9s into these 2 squares because of this 9 here and this 9 here. And this 9 here is nice. So now where can we put a 9 in this bottom funny shaped square? Only here. So that's going to be a 9. So 9's in this block. Where can we put them? Well, we could have one here, and can't have one in either of these 2 squares because of these 9's. We can have one there. That's a bit annoying. I was hoping there was only going to be 1 space left for the 9's there. Hang on. Haha, I didn't. There's something I've just noticed here which is rather nice. Look, so let's look at this J-shaped block. A 9 can go in this position, can't go here, can't go here, can't go here, and can't go here. So it can go in 2 positions in theory in this J block. But look, we can do another parity trick. Let's divide down the grid here between column 8 and column 9. Now if we study this, these 3 cells will have to have the same value as these 3 cells. And you may say, well, why does that matter? Well, it matters in this instance because this 9, if this 9 was true, I would need to put a 9 in one of these 3 positions. And that's going to bust this cage because we're going to get a repeated 9. This 9 is not correct. We can use the parity to establish that. This is a 9. Oh, that's beautiful. Right, now this is a 9, and this is a 9. So we've done a lot of 9's now. We haven't got all the 9's. This block hasn't got a 9 in it. Okay, so the 9 can go here or here. And this block hasn't got a 9 in it. And so the 9's are going to go in the same columns, obviously. Otherwise, that puzzle would be resolved, well, so far as the 9's are concerned. Okay, I'm going to come back to what I noticed at the start, which is the 3 here. So we know that these blue squares are related. So where can we put a 3 in this block? It's going to have to go here because this 3 rules out the 3 from all of these positions, and this 3 here rules it out from there. So now we know that there is a relationship just between these 2 cells. These 2 cells have to have the same parity. So I'm going to just delete the highlighting from there just so that we get some. We just have to remember these 2 have to be the same. Now let's take a look at, this 3 is very nice. Look at what it does in this funny block here. So it rules out all of these positions. These 3 are ruled out because of this 3 and this 3, so this has to be a 3. Now what? a 3 go here, here, here? Oh, 3s are quite restricted everywhere actually. So 3's in this block, just one of those two places I think. And you can see that's going to get resolved here, because where can we put a 3 in this J-shaped block? Only here. So that means this must be a 3 as well. 3, we've done the 3 in this one. We haven't done the 3 in this one. 3, 3, this can't be a 3. So the 3 I think is in one of those two positions. And we haven't done the 3 in this key-shaped block. And it can, yeah, okay, so it can go in one of those two positions. So we're making some progress. 2s, this 2 here and this 2 here. There's only one place a 2 can go in the bottom left, that's there. Now, beautiful. So look at our green shape here. 1, 2, 5 and 9 are filling the green shape, and the green shape was derived from the imaginary line down this part of the grid. So we know these 4 cells must contain the numbers 1, 2, 5 and 9. And this square can't be a 1, 9 or a 5. So this square is a 2. And I can see immediately this 7 now is forced into this square in this funny shaped block. And this 2, remembering what we did earlier, we said that the 2 and the 7, these two numbers here have to be the same as these two numbers by parity. So this is a 2. And we've got lots of 2's over on the right hand side of the grid now. Just trying to see whether we can make any simple... okay, yes we can. Look at this key shape block again now. The 2 must go here. It's the only place a 2 can go. And now this is the only place a 1 can go in this key shape block because of this one and this one. So this is a 1, resolving the pencil mark 3, resolving this pencil mark 3 over on the right, and we're left with, and this 7 rules out a 7 from this square, which means this must be a 4 to complete the 1 to 9 in the key shape. 7, 7. Right, okay, so what now? So 7. Let's look at this block. You can see, yes, where can we place the numbers 7 and 5 in this block? We have a 5 and a 7 here, and a 5 and a 7 here. So there must be a 5-7 pair in this block in those two positions, which means the rest of it is 4, 6 and 8. Let's just highlight that to keep track. 4, 6, 8, 4, 6, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7. And I'm just going to check the rest of this green. So this can be a 1, 5 or 9. This can be 1, 5 or 9. This one can only be 1 or 5. So is there a way of limiting this? Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Okay, not easy to see. See if you can see how to resolve this 1, 5. We don't need to use geometry this time. Well, we don't really need to use it, but we do need to think about where a 5 can go in row 6. Now this square here is ruling out a 5 from this position, and believe it or not, this 5 up here is ruling it out from either of these two squares. Very hard to see. This square can't be a 5 because of this 5, which means there's a 5 in one of these two squares. And you can see now, as there's a 5 in one of these two squares, this cannot be a 5. This must be a 1. Now, well, there's a few things that are occurring to me here. Obviously, there must be a 1 in one of these two cells now. But the other thing is, we know from our green parity that these two form a 5-9 pair now. But for the same reasons that this 1 5 was resolved, this is also resolved. This can't be a 5 either, so this is a 9, which means this must be a 5 by parity, and this must be a 9 by pencil mark. By pencil marks and parity. P's resolve everything. Right, so that is good progress. Now let's just see if we can see. This 5 resolves the 5 7 pair. Look, that must be this way round. We've got a lot of 7s in the grid now. So can we do anything with that? I'm not sure. This column 1 6 7 down. Yes, this column 1 6 and 7 to complete this column. But look, the 1 here means there's not a 1 in either of those two squares. So the 1 is at the top, and this is a 6 7 pair. 6 7 6 7. 2. 2 is locked into one of these two squares. 1 4 6 8 along the top row. This can't be a 4. So this is a 6 or an 8 as well over on the left hand side. This is a 4 5 pair here. And we said there's a relationship between these two cells. Let's just check this. So what can this be? This can't be 1, 2 or 3. It can hang on. Look, we can do a trick. I was about to say this can be 4 and 5 because there's no 4 and 5 in the column or the row. But if this is a 4, we know from parity this will be a 4. But it can't be a 4 because if this is a 4, look at this. We have a 4. We need to put a 4 somewhere in row 3. Well, if there's a 4 here, this square can't be a 4 because it's in the same shape, and this can't be a 4 because it's in the same column. So in fact, believe it or not, this square here cannot be a 4. So this, or a 5. So this is a 6 or a 7. It can't be 8 or 9 because of the, which means this is a 6 or a 7. Now, where can we put a 5 in row 7? It can't be here anymore. It can't be here because there's already a 5 in the column. It can't be here because there's 5s in the block. So it's in one of these two positions and there's a 5 there. This is a 5, which means this is a 5. 5, 5. Now this 5 here resolves. This can no longer be a 5. This is a 4. This is a 5. We must have done. Have we done all the 5s now? No, we haven't. We haven't done a 5 in this block down here. It must go here. This is a 5. Where can 1 go now in this block? This 1 means it can't go here. Can't go. This is a 1. 1. Where can 1 go in this shape now? I think only here. Yep, that's the only place it can go. It's ruled out from the other positions just by rows and columns checking. This is a 1 now, resolving the earlier pencil marks. 2. We haven't done the 6 and 7 yet, have we? And this square has a relationship to this square. There is an 8 here. This can only be 4 or 6. So that's just looking at column 1. You can see we need to place 4, 6 and 8. And this 8 here means this can only be 4 or 6. So by parity, this can only be 4 or 6. Okay, so what are we missing here? What are we missing? Hang on. If we look at row 1, we need 4, 6 and 8 to complete it. But there's a 4 here, so this is a 6 or an 8. And there's a 6, 8 pair now. 6, 8 pair in column 2, this can no longer be 6. This is 7. Therefore, by parity, this is 7. Now, what can we do now? We need to put a 7 in this bottom block. That can now only go here, I think. Still haven't got this 6, 7 resolved in these two squares, but we must be very close to resolving it. Where can a 7... Yeah, a 7 can... If we look at this funny shape, this can't be a 7, this can't be a 7, this is a 7. 7, 6, 7 like that. We need... So this is a 4 or an 8. I feel like I should be able to resolve this 4, 6 now, but I'm not quite seeing how to do it. And what else do I need here? I need 4, 6 and 8 everywhere, basically. 4, 6 and 8. So again, this is a 4 or an 8 here. This is anything. There's probably a more elegant way of doing this, but when you get to this point, I'm going to break my own rule and just try and bust it open, I think. I feel like I should actually be able to do something with 2s. Where I've got so many 2s in the grid. Where can a 2 go in this block? Is it just in one of these two positions? Like that. And where can a 2 go in this? Yeah, there you go. So now in this shape, a 2 can only go in this place because of this 2 ruling out the 2 from that square. So this is a 2 in that shape. So this is now a 4 or a 6. Unfortunately, still not resolved. This shape needs a... there we go. There we go. This shape still needs a 6 and an 8 into it, but this 8 here resolves whether this can be an 8. This has to be 6. And finally, we resolve this square, believe it or not, which was, I think, the first thing I talked about when we opened the puzzle. So this 6 now forces this to be a 4, which in turn forces this to be a 4 by parity, which makes this a 6, which makes this a 6. Let's remove the 6 pencil marks from those two squares. This square here now must be resolved. This must be a 2. We can place a 4 and 8 into this block. Still a heck of a lot of 4, 6s and 8s outstanding. But I'm hoping we're not too far away now. This must be 4 and 8 up at the top here. Can't use geometry to help us there. So 4 and 8 here. 4 and 8 here. So that means this is a 6. And you can see now, yeah, there you go. 6 over here, 8 here. So this can't be a 6, which means this is a 6. The 8s now unwind like this, and there we go. I think we've done it. So not an easy puzzle. I don't know how long I've taken. I'll have a look at it in just a minute. Let me just finish it off. Check that it's right. So if I click this, yeah, 23 minutes. Goodness me. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching me solve that. I think this was quite challenging. Be interested to know how you guys got on. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it. And I hope this was a really good summary of how to attack these irregular Sudokus. And we'll be back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.